If you're into watches and you don't know our next guest today, you've obviously been living under a rock.
This is because I am the Messiah. I know everything about watches.
The biggest drug in the world is not cocaine, it's fame. Because whenever you have it, you're scared of losing it.
So we got something made for you. Show it to the camera first.
That is insane.
He's the best football player in the world.
Nico Leonard has exploded onto the watch scene over the last few years, selling tens of millions of pounds worth of watches and quickly becoming the most followed watch expert of all time.
Today I'm reacting to Travis Scott, Joe Rogan's, Kevin Hart's, Mark Wahlberg's updated watch collection. Actually wearing a fake watch here. Get the what the flying
But it hasn't always been easy for Nico, and he's had some pretty heart-wrenching times.
So I just split up with my partner after a 6-year relationship. I went to bed and I didn't come out of my bed for a week. I was like, I'm done. I'm just done. I don't know if I can fight this fight. It was tough. It was very tough. That was a dark period. But also I just didn't want to disappoint my father. I don't care what happens. I am not coming back for help. I'm not coming back to this. I'm changing my life here, right now, right there.
You're the most famous watchman on the planet. 50 grand, 3 watches. What do you buy? Nico, it is an absolute pleasure to have you on. I want to start by just talking a little bit about your background.
Yeah.
Grew up in Amsterdam, massively into football. Like, tell me about it. Normal school, normal hobbies?
Not really. You know, I was a kid that was relatively young, diagnosed at the age of 4 with ADHD, and I wasn't really like it wasn't really normal. I moved schools quite regularly. I think I had 3 or 4 primary schools. A lot of people don't know this, actually funny. And then I went in the school for special education, basically. And I think it was 10 or 11 because I had too much energy. I think that was the problem, or I was absolutely bored. So it was quite weird because at that age you don't realize that. Looking back now, you realize what was going on, and I just had to move schools. I just remember teachers being angry at me all the time.
What was it like growing up in Amsterdam?
Unbelievable. I have a great childhood, and I have a lot of fun and playing on the street, playing football on the street every day, because that's what we were doing, right? I grew up in a time where the first Nintendo was there and video games and whatever, and I remember that well. My sister, she's 9 years older than me. She had the first ever Nintendo, and listen, I had a great childhood, but we were always outside playing football.
Was football your kind of first passion?
Yes, that was my first love, because that really allowed me to be different. Like at that age, you don't realize that you're either hyperactive or people find you annoying. I just always had the feeling that no one accepted me, but the first time that people accepted me was when I had a ball on my feet, because all of a sudden I was chosen first in a group, you know, and I want to play football with him, where that in previous scenarios in school it was completely different.
Do you have a good relationship with your parents? Or not?
Yes, yeah. They're mega. They're unfortunately both very ill. It's really weird and really sad, but love them to bits. And I'm living in a different country now than they are, and it's difficult, but I love them to bits. I like my parents pulled me through and always stood up for me in schools, etc., to help them understand what was going on.
Yeah.
So
growing up in Amsterdam, and then you moved to Northern Ireland. Like, what was that? Why did you move out? Why Northern Ireland? What was the pull?
After when I lost my football career, or I got severely injured at the age of 19. I dabbed around. I became a private chauffeur for a really wealthy guy who passed away recently last year. He's been a big inspiration for me as well. He was mad about watches. That's not where my obsession for watches started, by the way, but it basically it exploded from there, if you know what I mean. But I was in between jobs. I didn't finish school, and yeah.
What age did you move over?
I moved over when I was 25. The day I left on the 21st of August, the day after my birthday, and I knew I wanted to leave. I needed to change my environment. I needed to change my life and my social circle. And I promised my mom, and I told my mom that I would she asked me to leave, at least wait for your birthday, which was the 20th of August. So I left the day after my birthday.
I hope you don't mind me talking about it, but from what I've read, like that injury you had on your knee, I think it was meant to be a fairly routine surgery, and you woke up and then shit had really, it just got lumped on you that actually wasn't going to work, and that the football career was over. And I've also read that it was the first time you saw your old man cry.
Yes.
Do you think that was him kind of realizing that your dream was maybe not going to go in that direction, or his dream by default?
No, because my parents never pushed me to do football. My parents just, I don't really come from a background with footballers, although one of my faraway cousins made it to pro football, not very high, by the way, but no, he never pushed me to go that direction. It was just something I loved very dearly. And when you love something so dearly, I'm the type of person that puts a lot of energy and time in there. And therefore, my parents supported me. If I chose ballet, it would be, my parents still would support me, right? So it was just hard to see a dream there and then just collapsing. Like and that's a really hard realization. And it was a normal routine operation, a surgery, where they take out part of your meniscus or even your full meniscus, with drilling 3 holes in your knee. This is on the sides of your knee, and
you didn't have a plan B at the time. Like football was.
No, I didn't have plan B. Football was all.
That's quite a lot for a young man to deal with. Like working throughout those like formative years to like one main goal, and then like that.
But it was the only thing I was good at. So it was, for me, we didn't, like, for me it was always about discipline, right? I was going to be extremely good in anything I do when I truly love it, right? But I would be extremely bad, equally as bad in something if I don't like it, right? Or if I'm not interested in it. And for football is the same. And whenever that collapsed, my world collapsed. And that is, now looking backwards, it's been a blessing in disguise, because a lot of my friends, also from that time, a lot of them didn't make it. Some did make it, but also friends of mine now that are footballers. They're at the age of 34, 35. Most of them still, when they're retired, they still need to find a job at a certain point, right? And one of my closest friends, Gareth Macaulay, he played for West Brom, he played for Leicester. Like, he's done very well for himself financially with football. He doesn't have to go to work. But that problem, like, in your mind, there's a difference with not having to work, right? Because your financial situation is solid. But also there's a situation mentally.
It's the purpose thing, isn't it?
It's the purpose there all of a sudden. But so many footballers that I know will have to go back to work for the financial situation. So looking back now, I'm 35 years old now, and this is a hard realization. I am very fortunate that I didn't make it. Yeah.
What standard would you have been, do you reckon? Were you good enough?
I would have played the Dutch Eredivisie, not at the top, not at the top, but Dutch league, maybe championship level, something like that. I wasn't the biggest talent, I was just the hardest worker. And that's it. And I'm very fiery, if you know what I mean. Very aggressive. Yeah. Even at that young age, to be honest.
Right. So take me back. Probably take me back now to like when did you start being conscious of watches? How did that love form?
It started at a young age, right? And I think this was a moment where this is the earliest I can recall it, and this was Mallorca, on the island of Mallorca, where I saw someone wearing a Submariner, Rolex Submariner Blue Dial, 16613 LB. Sunburst that really popped, and I really wanted to know what that was, and I think that my journey really started there as earliest. And my first watch I got it when I was 16, and on my 16th birthday, when my mom and dad took me out to an area I think it's in the west of the Netherlands, if I'm correct, or the south. Either one. It's a place called Roermond, and that's an outlet center, and they had a Seiko outlet. And my parents couldn't afford a Rolex, obviously, but they were able to. We found a watch there that really resembled a Rolex Datejust. And that was really cool. I still have that watch.
It's one of the things I was going to ask you was that, like, Rolex, I think for a lot of people, that first Rolex like symbolizes like the hard work and the effort and the success and whatever. Was Rolex that kind of it was that initial love?
Yeah. No, but like later when you do research, you realize how important Rolex has been and how important Rolex is, and the people behind Rolex. Rolex was founded not too far away from here, actually, from where we are now, in 1905. And Hans Wilsdorf, how he grew his business from Wilsdorf and Davis to then a rename in 1908 to Rolex to then or 1911, and then moving the company to Switzerland in 1919. There's an incredible story there, and we all look at watches the wrong way, I think, because we look at it from a luxury point of view. Some of us look at it from a tool perspective, right? It's a proper tool watch, like the watch you're currently wearing, the root beer. That variation didn't exist until recent years, but that watch on its own finds its origin in 1950, and it was specifically made for pilots that were flying transatlantic to see two time zones, right? And the watch was never commercially, was not built to be sold commercially. It was just made for the pilots in this case. And we're talking about Pan Am in this case. But we also need to realize that mechanical timekeeping devices is something that is so important in our history, because we wouldn't be able to fly, navigate, nor do anything if it wasn't for timekeeping devices, for navigation purposes or measuring distance, speed, and everything. Everything in life, what we do, is involved around timekeeping devices. But
you didn't start by trade. You started by repairing, if I'm right.
Yes, no, I started as an enthusiast, which I'm luckily still am, but I started, like, one of the things I was good at school is listening to history and stories. I just loved that. I love stories. I'm a very creative person. I love to imagine things. And this is where the watch world is so incredibly special, because watches have a story, right? There's not an industry where brands are still operating today, but they were founded like 2 centuries ago. Like, name in another industry where that is the case, right? And that's what I really, really love about watches. But therefore, I started to learn about watches, and I started to write articles about watches, and no one picked it up. And then I got paid 50 quid to do, or 50 euros to do an article or something, right? And I tried to work on Facebook groups whenever that started for the first time. And then I started repairing watches, and then
what watches? What were you repairing?
Like anything automatic, right? It's very easy to take a watch apart, right? That's not difficult. The hard part is putting it back together. Right? That's the hard part. So I've made many mistakes in that, and but it was a good side hustle. You know?
When you start kind of investing in trading in watches then?
Trading in watches started at the age of 29, right? When I started an Instagram account.
So you've been in Ireland for kind of 4 years now.
So I moved to Ireland at the age of 25 to play football for a local club, and I was going to be paid £1,100, which was a little bit less than I got paid in the Netherlands for a shitty job, but at least I was going to enjoy myself. You see what I mean? So that was incredible, and I moved to Northern Ireland, and within a month, after the first month, I broke my ankle. And this was pre-season, and that was heartbreaking. And from that moment, I just decided to fuck this. I can't do this. I ain't sorry.
Was it straight into watches or not, or did you get?
No. I got some dead end sales jobs because I met a girl at the time, you know, and like she was a reason for me to stay. But also, I just didn't want to disappoint my father, because he said, "No, you're in 6 months, you're back, or he's back, or whatever." And I just wanted to prove him wrong, right? And 11, 12 years later, I'm still there.
Was it always that pestering thing in the back of your head, like, I want to be in the watch game immediately after leaving football, or not? No.
It was just, I needed to listen, I never thought it would be possible for me to sell luxury watches, mate. That's not in the realm of my capabilities, right? Or where I'm from, right? From where I'm from, that is not normal, right? Luxury is not a thing, right? But it was in the back of my mind that I just wanted to prove something to my parents. I moved country. I don't care what happens. I am not coming back for help. I'm not coming back to this. I'm changing my life here right now, right there. And that was one of the big motivation. Another motivation to stay was I met a girl, very good. In Belfast, you had call centers where your only requirement of skill is speaking a certain language. Now, I'm very fortunate that I speak Dutch, because that's so valuable and very useful. For those who don't notice, that was sarcastic. So I got dead-end sales jobs, and I got fired from that within 3 weeks or 4 weeks.
Why? Just clash of personalities?
Or like, I'm not an easy person to, like, I'm just not an easy person, right?
Because it goes back to what you were saying a second ago, is that like when you're passionate about something, you are full send at that point.
Yeah, absolutely.
When you're not passionate about it, forget it.
I just needed to make some money, right? That's what I needed to get by and figure out what the next move was. Again, I was repairing watches at the time, but that was a side hustle. I was making 300-400 quid a month with that, right? So that was all right. And with the salary I got, I had an all right life, right? And then I had the possibility. So a Dutch guy sent me a message on LinkedIn that he's building a sales team in Dublin for Vodafone. And I was like, right, this is brilliant, done. But I live in Belfast, that's Dublin, right? My missus at the time, she's from an area called Banbridge, County Down, which is closer to the border. Got the job, and I'll never forget this, 30,000 euros, and that was the biggest salary I ever got, right? A year, right? And we moved because of that to Banbridge from where her parents were, right? And she was in medical school in Belfast, so that was she had to commute, I had to commute. But I drove every single day from Banbridge, County Down to Dublin, Carrickmines, Junction 15 on the M50 for 4 years, for 3.5 years, right? And that was, in the beginning, first year, it's all right, you're doing well. And it's also the first time I kept a job for longer than a year, to be honest, because the guys in the team that were there, they just allowed me to work in my strength, right? And just let me be, Nico will do well. And I've always done well.
Were you good at it?
Worked hard. Yeah, I was a good sales guy, at the time. Yeah, I was a pestern for my manager at the time. But listen, I brought in the numbers, and they were building something, and I was able to have my small impact on that team. And it felt like I was a part of something for the first time, bar football. So first time in my working career, which I'm very grateful for. But after 3.5 years driving 2 hours one way, so 4 hours a day in a car, I couldn't do it anymore. And watches was my side hustle. It's always been my side hustle. I just like, I can't do this any longer. I just can't. It's like I drove in the office and it was there a moment. It's like, if this is life, fuck that. I don't want anything to do with it.
But it wasn't like the watch side hustle was growing to a stage.
No.
Where
No, it wasn't growing at all. And because keep in mind, right, I left every day at 6 a.m. for me to be in the office at 7:45, right? And I left, and I was allowed to leave a little bit earlier, so I left 4:15. But on the way back, it was busier, so I was always home at 7:45, right? Now, that is intense, right? That's very intense. At 7:45, and then you need to spend time with your partner, and then we had 2 dogs, and it was like I didn't have a life. And I'd done that for 30,000 euros, and then you need to minus the fuel cost, the cost of your car, and it was just, it didn't make any sense.
You basically left your work with no plan B.
Now, the funny bit is, I never told my missus this, right, at the time, and she was graduating medical school, so you got a job, right, as an F1 doctor. And I think her first job at the time was, I think it was the emergency department, right? And whenever she got her first job, I was the one that paid the bills, right? I literally quit my job there and then. I walked in that morning, and I didn't realize this, right? I didn't plan this. I was like, fuck. I made comments through the years as a joke to her. It's like, whenever you're qualified and you get the job, I'm gonna quit my job and I'm gonna go back to uni, or I'm gonna do what I love. Whatever. There was always jokes, right? But there was this morning, not planned, I swear, not even planned. I drove in the car park, and you go down in the car park, and I was like, I'm not doing this any longer. I'm just done. I'm done with it. I'm absolutely done with it. That's the day, that morning. I spent 30 minutes in the office. Done. I was done.
And you realised straight away that watches was going to be the full-time thing?
Yes.
Yeah. How did it start?
Instagram account.
Yeah.
Instagram account I opened.
And this was selling. This was not repair anymore. This
was selling, but also repairing as a service. But I opened an Instagram account, and I started talking about watches. And I have my first video still here.
Do you remember the first watch you sold?
Yes.
What was it?
Now there's 3 there, right? So it's either Tom Gannon, Fulfill protein bars.
Oh, yeah, of course. I did. Yeah,
so Tom Gannon started that, right? Yeah. And Tom Gannon is a good friend of mine still. It was a Breitling Navy timer, and I posted a photo on my Instagram, time for Fulfill. I swear to God, if I go to my archives now,
you'll find it. Yeah.
You'll find it, right? It's not public. But Tom Gannon, he started Fulfill bars, sold done incredibly well, and bought his first luxury watch. He paid €2,500 for that watch. So, Tom, if you're watching, sorry, but it is funny story, right? Full circle now, because he still helps us with the business today. He just saw a young guy that just had an ambition,
hustling,
right? Yeah. So and he's now involved, not financially involved, but he is. I want him. He's gonna get a seat on the board, and he's just involved. Funny how that full circle goes. And a guy from Dublin, I think his name was Connor, bought a Tudor Pelagos on a rubber strap. These were the first 2.
Where did you buy the watches off in the first place? Where were they?
eBay. I bought them on eBay, and I bought one watch from an auction house. Yeah. Right. Let me show you a photo. This was Tom. This was on the 13th of October, 2017. That's Tom Gannon and me.
Oh, real?
And that was the Tudor Pelagos I sold. And that's the 7th of October. So Tom wasn't the first. That was the 7th of October.
Yeah. If you're allowed to say, to give me a sense of like how it works, what kind of margins were you taking on the bid offer spread?
I know I lost money on the Rolex and a good bit, right? And I lost money on an EP2 I bought after. I think I made 50 quid on the Tudor or something, and about 100 quid or something on the Breitling.
So you've got to do quite a lot of volume at that kind of scale to actually make it work. And
yeah, but I didn't have volume, and I didn't make any money for a very long time. Yeah.
Was there any because I imagine nowadays with like the rise of frauds and fakes and whatever, was there any people worried about, who's this guy that's selling me a watch out of the back of his car? Or?
I was always surprised about that, right? And I came to the conclusion that people in Northern Ireland are very gullible, right? And in this genuinely, and it's not a bad thing, right? Honestly, I only had good intentions, right? So I'm extremely grateful that people were gullible, but I'm a foreigner in a country that isn't mine, selling watches out of the boot of my car. Yeah. Like, if I was a bad guy, I could have sold a fake watch, right? Yeah. You see what I mean? But, like, of course, we never had the intention. But
were you worried about, was there security an issue at the time, driving around?
No, but in Belfast, it's safe, mate.
Yeah. What do you think about the rise in especially in London, like of like unbelievable amounts of watch theft?
Yeah, that's insanity, mate. It's absolutely insanity. And
because I feel like everyone speaking, you literally cannot wear a nice watch around central London.
I've been in a situation where this gentleman here was present, right? Yeah. Gareth, you can confirm this. I'll just say this the way it was, right? We were having a good time at sorry, this is not my missus watches this, but we went to a strip club, and I forgot the name of it, and it was with two good friends of mine, right? And we brought our videographers with us, right? Because we had a great success. We finished a really good video. It was the mystery box video. Hard work, a lot of preparation in that, right? We finished the video, and we went to celebrate to a bar. Then we ended up in a strip club. These guys, the videographers, hated it, didn't want to go, and stood outside or whatever the fuck they were doing, right? And never forget, there's a good friend of mine. Quite late in the evening, quite late in the night, went out to grab what was it? A bar? Yeah, a Sprite and a Crunchy across the road, right? And set himself on the curb and sit down there, and then the strip club there, right? And there was this group of guys starting to surround him, right? And at that moment, I walked from the stairs up to have a cigarette, and I see this happening, and one is pulling his arm, and the only thing I could think of is, sprint and just run in that group and just scream and do whatever. That's my mate. It's not happening on my watch, right? Yeah. It's not happening. So I went absolutely mental, and I remember you standing outside, and everyone thought I was a lunatic. But these guys, they were shocked. Then I grabbed my mate and literally dragged him to the entrance where there was security. No, where they were in front of security. So what happened then was more dangerous than that moment, because they realized what I've done. I've just cost them a Rolex Submariner, right? Yeah. And they started waiting for us out. So we got a warning that we were warned. It's like, we'll get all securities on the side. They literally were waiting for me to literally chop my head off or whatever they wanted to do. And so they had a taxi right in front. They had security on the side so no one could walk in. And then we were... Drive, yeah. So a mad story, right? A mad story about London and danger. Other than that scenario, what I just... Like, we always have, and nowadays we have always security with me, right? When we carry valuables, right? It also depends where we go, etc. But Laura, my assistant, is very good at that, so she plans that out. But the key here is like, it's horrendous that people can't even wear their watches, and it has a big impact on our industry, and it will have a lasting impact and it's easy to complain about something if you don't have a solution for it, right? But I don't know what the solution is. Why in other countries is it possible? Is it less bad as that it is in London? Because London is the crime capital in the watch world across the entire world.
I've got an amazing story here. Graham and I are walking back from a client meeting, right, about 8 o'clock at night, and we get back to the office outside, and there's an unmarked police car holding a bloke up against the wall, right? And we're feeling a little bit nosy, so we come inside, we get our bags. We go back outside and we're walking down. I don't know if you noticed some of the squares just down opposite the office. And one of the policemen starts following us, and we're like, oh God, we'll turn around and see what's up. And he says, well, look, it's just around the corner. It's just been a watch theft. 4 guys, they've all run in different directions. We can't find the watch on this guy, but he might have thrown it somewhere. Right, I was wearing a nice watch at the time, so just thinking, oh, whatever. Anyway, next morning, we're walking to the office about, it'd be like 5 a.m.-ish. And I will never, ever, ever know why I looked down into it was like a basement of a flat, right? And I looked down and there's a watch I can just see, right? And I hop over the fence, jump down, it's probably like 6 foot down. And I'm not like massively into watches, right? And I picked it up, and that is what I picked
5726 Patek Philippe Nautilus. That's insane.
Right? So I picked this watch up, right? Okay. And I'm walking back to the office and I'm like shaking, okay? I'm shaking, I'm like... This is mental. So I call up the police because I thought, well, do we call Patek or do we call the police? Anyway, called 111, and they said, we'll have a detective with you in the next 10 minutes. And bear in mind, this is like 5:30 in the morning, okay? So someone arrives at the office and he takes out his backpack and starts swabbing my mouth to make sure, I don't know what it's for, to make sure maybe it's not me. And he says, look, this is like mind-blowing. If we can get it back to the guy, then great. Anyway, next day I get a call from a random bloke, and he says, I've just been given my watch back by the police. I want to come and see you. Okay? So the guy comes to the office here. He's like a 75-year-old Pakistani bloke. He grew up in the slums in Pakistan. He started a clothing business, a textile business, employs like 6,000 people, and he got his watch back, and he got his Patek back.
Fucking right, that's unbelievable.
How about that?
That is an unbelievable story, and fair play for doing that. I hope you done a good deal with him after, no?
Sadly not. Sadly not. But anyway. So right. So you're selling watches in the back of your car.
Yeah.
Where does Pride and Pinion come into play here? How do things formalize?
So I started an Instagram account called WatchNI, watchni.co.uk. Funny enough, my father actually noticed that when you do WatchNI, which is called Watch Northern Ireland, right? Because every business in Northern Ireland put NI behind their name. Invest in I, this and I. It's funny, right? So I thought I'll do that. I'm very creative. Watch and I. Whatever. But if you then look at the URL.co.uk, you see watch Nico.uk. And I'm like, I didn't even notice. My father actually came up with that, right? He's like, so fun how you done that. And I'm like, what? Like, there's your name in there. I was like, what? Yeah. I never knew, so that's quite funny. In 2019, we changed the name to Pride and Pinion because, listen, I've never been really ambitious enough. Because with the background, with everything I'd done, everything always failed. I was like, you know what? I want to do this, and I'm going to make sure I'm going to make a living out of this, but I'll see wherever we end. And about after the first year of struggle, of hustle, of everything, I just realized I'm like, we can actually do something here. And yeah.
And with I imagine the watches were getting more premium as you were kind of going along.
Yes, exactly. So the prices were growing. We started making my. As I said, it was just me and someone else at a certain point that I employed, and yeah, it was like I found my niche and finally doing something that is going well.
And you were selling them mostly through Instagram at the time or not?
Yeah. Instagram and Chrono24 at the time, where Chrono24 still charged 2%. They're now really they're not very good at the moment. They've been horrendous the last 2 years with dealers and end consumers, to be honest. A platform that I think will die very soon if they don't watch out. Through Chrono24, sometimes an eBay ad or whatever, in any means possible to sell a watch, I was doing it, right? And in April 2019, I changed the name to Pride and Pinion, and I thought it was a cool name. Pride, Pinion is a part of a movement, part of an engine as well, by the way. Cool logo, and I was happy. I was like, this is inspired on Patek Philippe with the 2 P's, and the crown looks like the Rolex crown. It looks the bollocks, right? So I was like, I'm happy with this. And from here, we're going to move forward. And he became a good client of mine that owned several hotels across in the country, in Dublin as well. He bought I believe it was a vintage Explorer, or it was an Omega Aquaterra World Timer. He bought both, but I don't know which one was first. And I just asked him the question. I was like, I would love to create a boutique in hotels. Thinking he was going to say no. Yeah, whatever. Good story, mate. Give me my watch. He says, yeah, let's do it. Let me speak with my father. Next week, done and dusted. And I was like, wow, incredible.
This is kind of...
It's 2019.
So this is about a year before COVID.
Yeah, just that year before COVID. And I was like, yeah, let's do this. Blah. Barely any money in the bank account, but whatever. I was like, yes. And I will figure it out. We'll figure it out later. This is how I go through life. I still do today. Yeah. Bought a Ferrari, not a penny in the bank account. I'll see. Whatever. We'll end up. We'll end up well somewhere, right? But yeah, unbelievable.
So COVID hits. I've read that you pretty much sold half of your.
Oh yeah, no, I sold everything. I sold
fear
more than 50% than what I owned at the time, and that was quite heavy.
You were selling at losses or not?
Yes, yeah. I offered. I remember this very well because I offered to a guy in London, Luke Stafford. They have pawn shops, Charles Fish, I think it's called, here in London. Offered him a Greendale Daytona, yellow gold, for £24,000.
What, they're now 100-ish or not?
No, they were 120, but they're now back to about 70. But and now £24,000, and he said no. Because no one was buying. Yeah. And
how quickly did you realize that was gonna flip?
Mate, that was the scariest thing, because all of a sudden I had stock, and I had Madeline, that was my admin, and Michael was my sales guy. So I had 2 staff, right? And so for me, it was very important that we still have a business in the end, but I need to pay these guys, right? So I sold off half the stock at mad losses. Yeah. I kept the Greendale Daytona, but other stuff that I had, I sold at mad losses. And I remember I had £90,000 on the bank, and I was like, okay, this is good, done. Spoke with our accountant, Ryan, all good. This is so many months. Brilliant. And about a few days later, furlough was announced, and I was like, I'm extremely grateful that I get support now. Yeah. But what if it was a few days earlier, you know?
How quickly did you start buying stock back?
I didn't buy any stock back.
Sure.
No, I just stopped it there. Yeah. Business stopped there. Furlough was announced. I was able to pay the staff, and I had about 120 grand in the bank. And I went to bed, and I didn't come out of my bed for a week. I was like, I'm done. I'm just done. I don't know if I can fight this fight. I was locked in a house, and I was very fortunate. I had a house with a lot of land on the outside, but like I was alone. Yeah. Right?
What was going through your head?
All sorts of things. Like, I mean, not great. You're alone. Like, I had 2 dogs. I just split up with my partner after a 6-year relationship. It was tough. It was very tough. And yeah, that was a dark period. And it's the period where I also made the best decision to date. One of the best decisions.
Is this the hiring of Stephen or not?
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
So after a week of feeling sorry for myself, right? Which, by the way, you shouldn't be doing, right? Because it's a load of bollocks. Man up and deal with problems head on, and don't feel sorry for yourself. That's a big learning what I've done. I called Stephen, and Stephen worked for Goldsmiths. He was a shop manager at Goldsmiths, right? And there was a few shops. He helped a few shops, and he ran a few shops, right? And because of my line of business and opened the shop, we spoke with each other quite regularly on Instagram, and I walked in the came into Goldsmiths a good few times when we had to service a watch or repair something. They would send it to the brand. You know what I mean, right? And I always made this joke, when are you joining? Done this for about a year, right? Where we made this joke. And he says, let's talk. And I called him, and I don't know if it was the evening, because the next morning he came. I called him in the evening, and I was like, right, this is over. Fuck this Amy Winehouse. I was listening to Amy Winehouse. Back to Black.
Yeah.
What an incredible album, by the way. And stop feeling sorry for myself. And I called Stephen. He says, now come the next morning and we'll see. We'll figure it out. And he broke, what do you call that? You weren't allowed to travel. He broke that. He came to me that morning because he knew it was serious, and I was serious, and I was just like, I can't do this anymore. I showed him the bank account. I says, listen, Stephen, I know it's a big risk for you. You have a young family with that time Anna, and she wasn't pregnant yet from the second, and I know you have a steady job and it's a corporate environment, whatever. I'm not giving you any guarantees. I can't promise you anything. I can offer you the same salary, and we'll see what it is. This is the bank account. This is how much I have. Let's jump in this. And he said, surprisingly, yes. That's the quality of a good sales guy, right? Yeah. And I wasn't alone anymore for the first time, right? Because that was tough. He not just restructured our business. He was another set of eyes, and he was another sales guy, and he was another
very different personality.
Oh, he's very calm, very collective, He can be an absolute mad one, by the way, but he's he's everything I'm not, and I'm everything he isn't, right? Yeah. So he is very cautious. He's very cautious. He's very calculated, and I'm an absolute bulldozer that just bull in a china shop. That's me. But I just push people to the absolute maximum capabilities. Like I push myself, and I think that really helps Stephen as well, opening up, because I see a different Stephen now than I've seen before, where he always said, stuff is difficult. It's like, we're gonna do it.
How did things start picking up from there?
We had someone in the business, and he saw things that I didn't see. We started rebuilding. We started thinking about ways of marketing. We needed a good website, and we needed to, because the shop was closed, right? That's in a merchant hotel, which is hospitality was closing first. And every other shop and every other competitor that we had were open, but we were closed because hospitality was closed. So we had to find alternative ways and use Instagram and show that we were delivering watches to people and just go the extra mile, right? And just having fun in the meantime while you do that, right? This is key. And add value, because this is what people always forget. I'm going to start a business, I'm going to make a shit ton of money. Like, yeah, 1 second, doesn't work like that. Yeah. You're going to start a business, you're going to add value, and if you add enough value, you get paid properly, right? That's how it works.
Was this the start of the YouTube channel or not?
This was the start of the YouTube channel. I didn't believe in that at all. The second idea, the one idea I didn't believe in, I always say this, the one idea I didn't believe in turned out to be the idea that saved my business in the end, because it gave us another chance, it gave us a marketing venue, and it was incredible.
Does it seem a little bit surreal to know that like you have, because I suppose there wasn't really anyone's footsteps to follow in that YouTube game.
No.
Like you're the most famous watchman on the planet.
That's bizarre.
Like
yeah.
Is that pretty mental to get your head around?
Sometimes, and I'm glad I have people around me that put me with both feet on the ground. I like to think that I'm a very humble person anyway, but sometimes I just like I'm still a bit me, right? And but I know what we've done to get where we are today, and I know my journey from where I started, and I know I'll never forget where I come from. So I remember that. But it's a crazy realization that not just in the watch industry, but in other industries, people just recognize me all of a sudden, being recognized on the street all the time.
How quickly did it start picking up? Like, did you know, was it very, very immediate? Suddenly people watching stuff? Was it a builder? We were,
of course, the media started growing and the views started getting in. I didn't get recognized from the beginning. I don't know when this started, maybe about a year after. Someone recognized you, and then you're hanging out with this YouTuber, and then these people recognize you, and then started growing. Now in London, I get several on the airport, on the airplane 4 times a year there. I love it, right? Because I wouldn't be here without them, right? That's the fun part. But as well, it's the recognition for something that we've worked on for so long. I've been ridiculed most of my life for my hobby, and now I'm being recognized for it. So that's quite cool. And then a crazier stat is nearly 500 million views. Like, that's bizarre, right? This is views, not views. Like, these are stats that are absolutely insane. And for me, it was Kevin Hart. We're going to do a TV show with Kevin Hart with Heartbeat Productions. Yeah. So we've got a lot in touch with them and stuff like that. And he mentioned as well, the biggest drug in the world is not cocaine, it's fame. Yeah. Because whenever you have it, you're scared of losing it. And that is something I feel sometimes, but on the other hand, I'm like, nothing will go wrong. Everything is calculated now. Everything is planned. We're going to work our bollocks off. We're always going to work harder than the previous person.
It's a funny one, right? Because it's an industry that comes with, especially at the top end, like the planes, the cars, the celebrities. Like, have you found it hard to stay grounded at all, or do you have moments where you go, "Oh shit, this is"?
I would like to say no. I would like to say I give time to everyone, and my people around me say you give too much time to everyone, right?
By the way, thank you for coming on the podcast.
Here you see. But no, that, like, for me, if you make a promise, and I made a promise to your business partner, I keep it, right? Even if it's a podcast or whatever, keep your promises. I like to think that I don't find it difficult to stay grounded. Now, maybe some people around me would say different. I don't know. But I have great people around me, mate, that will put me back where I belong. Don't you worry. And that's Belfast for you as well, by the way, because I don't really get asked for photos or anything in Belfast, right? Because it's Belfast, whatever. Yeah. Right? In Belfast, they don't care. But in London or other cities or whatever, it's completely different. Yeah. It's funny, like.
So, like, outside of watches, obviously into cars as well. Yeah. Congrats on the new 812 GTS.
Thank you.
Unbelievable. Is that because it's an industry that's kind of similar to watches in many senses, right? It's that purist, that passion. Like, have you always been to cars as well?
Yes. Never was able to afford it, but always loved it. Right?
If Ferrari because you got a G-Wag as well, haven't you?
Yeah, G63.
If you got Ferrari and Mercedes as watch brands, what are they?
I think I saw some stupid video from someone recently. I was like, that's no. So you have that. You need to compare hyper with hyper, right? So Rolex, you see a lot of Rolexes on the street, right? I would say Rolex is a Mercedes, right? Ferrari is a little bit more special. It's a little bit more thought through and whatever. I would actually argue to say that Rolex is BMW because there's more hated, right? But Patek Philippe would be considered BMW, right? Which I think. And then you have Pagani is the hypercar. So you have the hyperwatch Richard Mille or Gribble Forcy or stuff like that. I think that would be a better comparison.
That's nice. And young baby as well?
Yes, 7 months old, junior.
What's that process been like with work and kind of this new thing in your life that's like massively important?
I'm very fortunate that my partner is very supportive, right? Because I'm not going to be away again. I was home for a week, right? And then I'm traveling. Now I'm traveling for about 2 weeks. I'm going to do about 9 countries, a lot of deals going on, YouTube stuff, events, etc., right? But like I say, my missus has been very supportive, but we've been very clear from the start, right? If we start with children, I cannot be the father I should be, right? I can only be there a very limited time. And we've managed this from the start. I've said this from the start. We agreed on this from the start. And it's all about open communication, and it works brilliant. People just say, how do you get away with that, with traveling so much and being all over the place? I'm like, because we talked about this. We managed this accordingly from the start. It's tough for me, and I find it more difficult than she finds it, because although she is nearly a single parent from time to time, I found it, this morning I left, I found it very, very difficult, and I'm not finding it going any easier. I'm not going to lie.
It's funny, our last guest spoke about this idea of work-life balance, and he kind of said, don't believe in it. It doesn't exist.
No, it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
And if it does exist, you're not working hard enough, or you've already made it.
Do you think your purpose has changed now? You've got a young little boy. Do you think are you working for him now? Is it like legacy?
I don't work for myself. My life is not mine anymore. It's my responsibility to set the example, rather than giving someone advice, because advice is easily given, but setting the right example is more difficult, right? And this is the same in business and whatever. If you think that if you're a captain on a ship and a ship is considered a business, and if you can't sail your ship, therefore your business, out of a storm, you shouldn't be a captain. You should be a sailor, right? So it's very, very clear to understand that perspective, right? My business, my life is not mine anymore. It's now for my children. She's pregnant again. Fantastic, right? There's something. And so I'm going to have 2 boys very soon. Thank you very much.
Another Ferrari.
For fuck's sake. But no, for me, it's very important to set the example, right? And luckily, in my situation, a lot of my stuff has been documented, right? Which hopefully my kids can look back to and say, okay, this is what he's done for us. Of course, there's a bit selfishness in there, and I love the attention, I love the fame, but whatever. It's not about me anymore. I'm not taking the same risks anymore. I'm not the same person than I was a year ago. It was really random. I noticed this. I'm more cautious, which can be a downside as well, to be honest. But I'm trying to figure out the balance there.
Yeah.
So
it's a weird one, right? Because you wouldn't think that meeting someone like yourself, who is now the most known watch person in the world, it like you speak to you for 20 minutes and it genuinely feels like you're literally just getting started.
Yes.
Do you feel that?
I am.
Yeah.
Because we're nowhere near the potential that where we are. Yeah. Keep in mind, I own 100% of Pride and Pinion. Pride and Pinion is one of the biggest names now in the industry. Names, right? Doesn't mean businesses. Names. It's one of the most well-known names in our industry. And I fight against conglomerates. I'm market leader on the island of Ireland, and I'm probably in the top 5 in the UK, right? And again, I'm sole shareholder. There's no conglomerates. There's no corporate structure there. We have the potential to be absolutely one of the biggest in our industry in the world, period, right? The funny bit is Watchbox gets an investment or draws investors in for 500 million and blah, 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 and they've lost a clean fortune. We're a very lean business. Last year, we've done 26 times our balance sheet, right? And it's credits to Steve and credits to my team, credits to everyone involved there. But we're very creative. We never complain about the resources. We are resourceful. We'll find a way, right? And finding that balance and seeing the business now everything is coming together now with a great office, with a great infrastructure, with a great CRM system. We're collecting data left, right, and center. We're building for the future, right? It's not about it's not about transactional profit right now. It's important to keep the ship afloat, right? But it's about the long game, right? It's about where we're going to be in 10 years, and where I in previous scenarios in life never was not ambitious enough. I don't even think that I'm ambitious enough and say that we should be and we are gonna be the market leaders in this side of the world. Yeah, most definitely.
It's a weird one, Nico, because like, you know, you're clearly a visionary, right? You wouldn't be in the position you're in without being a visionary. But also, from what you just said there, you're in the details as well. Has that been like, because lots of people don't actually enjoy that. They're either the blue sky, big picture guy, or they're the nitty gritty kind of details. Like, have you become more detailed oriented?
I had to, because if I can't answer a question about my business, you don't control your business. Right. And I noticed today on a phone call that I couldn't answer a question, and I was pissed off at myself because it meant like it was something simple, right? And our processes are not always perfect, and that really annoys me. And then I look back and then we need to fix this, right? But I think it's not because I'm really on point with or really on the ball with everything, because I've been fortunate with Stephen. I can let that go, right? And the nitty gritty, it's not my quality. I'm not gonna lie. I'm a visionary, and I push people to the max, and I push my business and everyone around me to the max of their capacities, and I think I'm very good at that. I had to do the nitty gritty because I started the business from scratch. I have this idea, this vision. Stephen finds it sometimes very annoying, but it is what it is. But there's things that you just, when it's your business, when you started something from scratch, and it's just not aligned with what one of the reasons why you started, but there is logic behind it. It's just very frustrating, right? But I need to learn how to let go. But for me, I'm still on a journey. I'm learning every day as an entrepreneur. I've never ran a company before. It's incredible. Yeah. It's incredible.
Looking back at the story, I want to know if there were any pivotal moments that you look back on and go, like, that moment was, I mean, maybe bringing Stephen on, like that was a really big moment. Yeah. But like, I mean, it's funny how life works. Probably the injuries that you had playing football, or that final career-ending injury, that was probably one of the biggest moments that's led to the success of Pride and Pinion. Are there any, I mean, do you agree with that? Do you think there are any others that, like, real significant times?
I think there's not just moments, there's people involved, right? The people I've met, the people that supported me, the people in Northern Ireland that trusted me, although I wouldn't have trusted that foreigner that lived in a country that wasn't mine, that sold this expensive watch for a cheaper price. Like, I mean, everything coming together makes a system work. And the support I've got from the people in Northern Ireland was just insane. I would actually argue to say that if I started my business anywhere else, I would have failed, because I would have never gone past level 2, if you know what I mean, because the support I got was unbelievable. And yeah, there's moments where you're making decisions as a captain of a ship, and some moments are good, some decisions are good, sometimes aren't as good, but the most important decisions I had to make were right decisions. Yeah. And you only know that when you look backwards. And Steve Jobs was the famous saying, you can only connect the dots looking backwards. And that just keeps on creeping in my mind. Things happen for a reason, fact, but you need to put your heart and soul in something. And I'm sad to sometimes see people, they want something, but they do it half-arsed, right? And I put myself in a situation without a possibility of return, so the point of no return, and that's the moment you need to give it your all, dedication, and every minute of the day you have, and that is what I've sacrificed. And I've sacrificed everything to get to this point where I am today. And now it's for us time. I call this Pride and Pinion 3.0, where we're going to bring the business to the next level, right? Where everyone is watching the economy and being very careful. We're going full throttle, and we're going faster than ever.
What would 17 or 18-year-old Nico think of the Nico that's sitting here right today?
I wouldn't believe wouldn't believe that in any way, shape or form. No, I would that's not possible. That's a joke. What are you talking about? I've always been a clown, right? I've always been a joker and fun and whatever. But now, I never thought that I could carry a responsibility as big as we have now. We have a lot of mouths to feed. There's a lot of families that depends on our business. And that's now my responsibility. And I never thought that I would be able to carry that responsibility. Yeah. But
it is tremendously admirable, honestly, mate. Watching what you've done over the last 5-10 years is it is insane. It is insane.
I appreciate that very much, but we've seen nothing yet.
There we go.
That's it.
2 more things, right? The first one is, I know your time is massively squeezed, and I know you're off very shortly. We wanted to do something just to say thank you. So we got a little something made for you.
Oh, look at that.
Show it to the camera first.
That is insane.
That's just a little thank you for coming in today.
That's insane. I really appreciate that.
You're very welcome.
Really, really cool.
And I want to ask you one last question. We normally ask, I guess, kind of philosophical questions or whatever is the last one, but I want to ask you one question, right? Yeah. 50 grand, 3 watches. What are you buying?
I don't think I need 50 grand, but for me, it's important that we look at history, right? Because history has taught us a lot of things, but history is also the reason why we are why we are in the situation where we are today, right? So you always need to honor that, right? So of course, a Rolex Submariner, because that is the most important watch one of the most important watches in the world, to set the standard for many other watch brands, but also was a proper tool. From 1953 onwards, that was the one to go to watch if you were a diver, if you were in any way, shape or form doing a dangerous job. These watches have been unwrist on people that saved the world. We're talking about soldiers, military-issued submariners that have saved a lot of people from bad situations. So a Rolex Submariner, Omega Speedmaster, because that's a very, very important watch for the space travel. One of the things Hans Wilsdorf and Rolex couldn't get sorted is winning that battle with the chronograph. At the time, Omega was a better watch at the time than the Cosmograph, because it wasn't called Daytona. Daytona was introduced in 1963. Prior to that, or 1960, the shape Daytona was 1963. But prior to that, Cosmograph, that's why there's Cosmograph on the Daytona. So that's a very important one. And then I would always say you want a dress watch with that, and either something classic, like a watch from the longest running watch company in the world, Vacheron Constantin. I think that is with 50K. That's fantastic. So you have history, you have importance. You can argue, say, take a Santos, but I think the Santos line, it's got nothing to do with history anymore. This is what automotive brands actually should do as well: embrace their history. Yeah.
I'm a big Porsche guy, so the 964 is like that resto mod thing is my cup of tea.
I was talking with one of the guys high up in Mercedes. He says, "What would your ideal car be? What do you think Mercedes should do?" I said, "You need to bring back your old 250E, but then that design, but make it into an electric car." That's how you sell your electric cars, because
Lambo have kind of done that with the Countach, haven't they? The new Countach.
Yeah, but that electric thing, S-Class or whatever the hell they call it, that looks horrendous. Yeah. So that's what it's funny. So I say, why do you need to make an electric car ugly? Yeah. There's no point.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, well, look, Nico, honestly, massive thank you for coming on.
No, appreciate
your time, and let's do it again.
Fantastic. Yeah? Thank you, mate.
Thank you, Nico.
Thank you.